Hello YouTube. I wanted to take a moment and talk about the Tunnels and Trolls 5.5 edition rule set. There's not been a lot of information on this game system on YouTube, so I thought I would share some of the things that I've discovered as I picked this up to play it with my family. I really like this system. I think that it's much easier for kids to play than Pathfinder or any of the D20 systems. The combat mechanism is extremely simplified. It's very streamlined, especially when you have several heroes fighting several monsters. I think that it's good in that the combat is, you can get through it more quickly and it doesn't seem to interrupt the narrative as much, and so you can get back to kind of the creative portion of the game. And I think that in that, it also encourages the characters to be very creative. I'm just going to give a real simple example. But say that you had a player fighting just a very weak monster. Say that it was, in Tunnels and Trolls, a monster has a monster rating. And what you do is you just take that monster rating, you divide it by 10, and then you add 1, and that's the number of dice that the monster gets. So say that it was a monster rating 25 monster. That monster would get 3 dice. So for the monsters roll, we roll 3 dice. Then it would get half of its monster rating as adds rounded up. So in that case it would be like 13. So we add this result here. We have 11 plus 13. The monster did 24 points of damage. So let's say the player had a sword that allowed it to roll 3 dice. He gets 9. So 9, we'll say that he had 5 personal adds is 14 versus the 24 that the monster got. The player gets 10 points of damage toward him. So then you would take his armor, whatever it is, maybe he has 5 armor points, and you'd subtract that. And then he might have and then he would have the remaining 5 points of damage come out of his constitution. So, which is like the hit points. So you can see that it uses this dice pool mechanism that's very simple. If you have 4 monsters, you just combine all their monster ratings into one monster rating. And if you had several players over here, they would each roll, and their total value, including all of their combat adds, would go against the monster rating, and then you would resolve it. So as you can see, this is a vast departure from like Pathfinder, where each player around the table is saying, they're describing their combat, they're throwing their dice, and then you work through it. I mean, I think that players like that because it makes them feel like they're adding something to the battle. But in reality, what it does is it really slows things down. And when you're doing these combats, even though they're faster and they resolve faster, it's up to the game master to make it colorful. So when my son and my wife are fighting a spider, I don't sit there and go, well, the players share 6 points of damage. I would describe the combat. I would say, your sword slips past the spider and he climbs onto your leg and he bites your knee, and I would make it colorful. And my wife and my son really enjoy that. When they attack the spider, they don't just attack the spider for damage. The dagger hits the spider on the back of its abdomen, and there's goo running out, and the spider begins to flop on the floor, and he crawls desperately toward your ankle to try to get another bite. You've got to make it colorful. You have to make it interesting. But they really enjoy it. Another thing that makes this system interesting is that, unlike a lot of your newer systems, it's not a board game. You're not meant to lay down a map and move a bunch of figures around. It's not, it's not Monopoly. It's supposed to be played more like Battleship. The game master describes an area. If the players want to draw a personal map, they can. I think there are situations where you need to pull out a small board and arrange the figures just to help explain an area or a situation. It's not required. it's meant to be played inside the theater of the mind, as it were. Another thing that comes up is, because the combat is the way that it is, because it's so fast and because it's so abstract, players don't feel like they have options. Well, that's just a misunderstanding of this game and how it's meant to be played. This is an old school style RPG. A player has the ability to try for anything. The odds very often are against the player. It does not guarantee balanced combat. There's no contract with there's no contract with the GM, the game master, that he has to make balanced combat. So an example that's given in this book is that a player is up against a giant he knows he can't beat. And so he tells the game master he wants to run between the giant's legs and hamstring him. So the game master looks at how fast the giant is. He considers the nature of the character. Maybe it's an elf. Maybe it has high dexterity. And the game master just, he makes a decision. He says that's going to be a level 3 saving roll against your speed or against your dexterity. And the player's allowed to try for it. And if he succeeds, then he can deal tremendous damage. And, likewise, it's up to the game master to see to it that failure has serious implications. Just as the player could have overwhelming success and terrible odds, he should be able to have, he should be able to suffer greatly in failure. I think this sort of thing becomes more difficult in your modern game systems. This game system encourages you to work with your mind. A player should be able to say, I want to climb this wall and get up on the ledge and push this boulder off onto the pack of gremlins. That's very difficult to do in a modern D20 system, because it's all, do you have rock climbing skills? Do you have boulder pushing skills? Do you have whatever? I think this game strikes a really nice balance in terms of creativity and combat. There's a lot left unsaid in here. I think back 30 years ago when this game was really popular, a lot of things were, taken for granted on the part of the player. There was a lot of assumed knowledge, and players today don't have that assumed knowledge. So that's what I'm trying to clarify in this video. Another issue that comes up as the monster ratings get really large. Say that you've been running a campaign for a really long time and you have really strong players and really strong monsters. Then you can get monster ratings that would require, 30 dice or more. There are various ways that people have handled this. One of them, some people say, well, I'm just going to roll 10 dice and then I'll average the rest. I'll just take 3.5 and multiply it across all the rest and add that pool result. I don't like that. A lot of people don't like that because it just averages everything out. You don't have the same swing in combat. It becomes pointless to even use the dice. What I prefer is what Ken St. Andre, the guy who designed this game, what he described. If you had 30 dice, he said just use a multiplier. You could roll 3 dice and multiply the result times 10, or you could roll 10 dice and multiply the result times 3. And if there's some odd number after your multiplier, then just, roll those extra dice. So if it were, 27, well, obviously that one you could do 9 times 3, right? But say that it was like 66, right? You might roll 10 dice and multiply by 6 and then roll another 6 dice. There's a number of ways to handle it, but that way you're still getting your broad range of attack, and you keep your swing and damage, and the game remains portable, and you're not ridiculous. You're not rolling tons of dice. People call this the bucket of dice problem. So it's not a problem. It's something that was solved a very long time ago. It's very easy to resolve. It's just the information doesn't seem to be out there, so I wanted to share that. Again, I think that this is a far superior system for children. I think that in terms of introducing people to role playing, this game excels. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Again, this is the 5.5 edition. This is the edition that most people play. There's also a 7.5 edition, I think, and they're making a deluxe edition. I think people don't play those for the same reason that no one likes the new Star Wars movies. You know, some things are fine just the way they are. So again, I hope that you'll check this game system out. I hope that you'll try it with your friends and, you know, keep the old school RPGing alive.